And hello there YouTube. So this is Thomas Judge, back once again with another instalment of my Ultimate New 52 reading guide in a video series. Just to explain why I'm doing this, I have over the last few years read the entire DC New 52. That was 3,646 single issues. From that I went on and built an entire map and infographic so I could make a video series so I could show other people what the perfect reading order would be and what the continuity is for this whole little closed universe. Today's video is video 6.2, which is continuing and concluding the heroes section of the map. Before we go any further, I would stress that even if you think you know what the New 52 is, or even if you're only interested in one character like Wonder Woman for example, you still need to watch the introduction video to this series, which is video 0.0. It covers loads of the broad concepts and themes that I'm not going to be reiterating on the individual videos, and I use that jargon quite a lot, so if you hear me mention things like the convergence line or type P readers, you're going to find it confusing. I would really strongly recommend that you check the description below, which is where I'm going to have a link to that video. Anyway, with no further ado, here is the Ultimate New 52 reading guide, and today's episode is video 6.2, Heroes Concluded. So if we zoom into the map, we have Flashpoint in the middle, and as I mentioned last time, we have Justice League and Suicide Squad to the right in orange, we have Batman to the north in black, and then we have Heroes in these slightly larger circles to the red here. Why did I make them all slightly larger? Well, no real reason. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. So today we're going to start with one of the first New 52 series that I ever read. I started the New 52 by reading Flash. So let's look at Flash here. Flash is the topmost part of the red circles, so the topmost part of the hero section of this map. So before we dive into it, things that you need to know are, let's see, well, nothing specific to be honest. He's a speedster, he runs really fast. That's about all you need to know. However, it's worth keeping in mind that the back history of the Flash and the various other people that have held that mantle over the history of the character is entirely critical to the entire functioning of the whole DC universe. This is one of the reasons that I actually really respect the New 52 so much. In this one closed off 5-year loop, new readers aren't burdened by that at all. You don't need to know anything else about the Flash. Literally, you just need to know that he runs fast. Everything else will be explained for you. However, and I can't stress this enough guys, if you are ever planning to dip even the slightest toe outside the New 52 in either direction, to either DC Rebirth that follows it, or things like Final Crisis that preceded it, you will need to get much more versed in Flash history. Like, you will need to become Jedi level Flash expert, I'm afraid. I know that sucks a bit, and that's why I wanted to do these videos. The New 52 is, from my point of view, the best springboard to decide whether or not you're going to go forward, back, or whether or not you're not going to learn any more about the Flash. So this series here, which we're looking at on the map, started with creators Francis Manapul and Brian Bruchaletto. This superstar team got a lot of hype, and the first 4 volumes even got collected into a single omnibus. I actually bought this way back when and was very excited to read it. I had a massive argument with Amazon about getting it delivered on time, and I was so excited the day I got it and went home, read it straight away, and found it actually quite underwhelming and ended up selling it. So I guess don't believe the hype. Having said that, I do plan on going back and rereading it again in singles, but at the moment I was just unimpressed by it. However, I will link to a great review of it, as in a great review of the omnibus, by the awesome Joaquin Comic Center in the description below. But as usual, let's just dive into these volumes. We'll start off with volume 1 with this distinctive image here. This is called Move Forward. Collects issues 1 to 8. If we follow that line up, we have the second volume, which is called Rogue's Revolution. That contains issues 9 to 12, issue 0 and annual 1. We continue going up, we get to the third volume, which is called Guerrilla Warfare. Guerrilla as in the animal gorilla, not the military gorilla. That collects issues 13 to 19. And then finally, if we just continue that along, if I can, where on earth? Here we are. And then this pretty unimpressive cover is for volume 4, Reverse. That collects issues 20 to 25 and issue 23.2. And it also ties together a lot of the smaller threads in the earlier arcs, whilst also offering a good story itself. Of the first 4 volumes, which you can see here all the way up to the Forever Evil line, of those first 4 volumes, I actually only collected the 4th one. That's also why I sold the omnibus. It contained too many issues I didn't like. But like I said, maybe one day I'll go back and reread them, and maybe I'll change my mind. At this stage, Manopul leaves, and Buccellato leaves the creative team alone. So let's zoom back in. Just after the Forever Evil line, you have this volume here with slightly old school artwork on the cover. That's volume 5. It's called History Lessons, and it collects issues 26 to 29 and Annual 2. I found this wholly uninteresting. Let's continue that line up, and we get to a very interesting volume here. Now, this is volume 6, Out of Time, which collects issue 30 to 35, Annual 3, and The Future's End one-shot. It's written by Robin Venditti and drawn by Brett Booth, and Brett Booth is a man who was born to draw on The Flash. Overall, this volume is just great. Now, one thing I want to point out is when you're reading this, you may get the feeling you need to read the Future's End event to understand what's happening. Please don't fall into that trap. This story is fine as a standalone. Yes, it has a link to Future's End, but it's so nominal and it's so actually unimportant that you don't need to worry about it. In terms of Future's End, we'll be talking about that next time. So, zooming back out from volume 6, let's continue following the line up. And we get to this, which is volume 7. Now, volume 7 follows directly on from volume 6. If you're reading volume 6, you should just continue straight on. So volume 7 is called Savage World. One continuous story. So it's a little bit annoying, and if I ever do a room tour, you'll see what I mean. Because on my shelf, volume 6 is the old branding with a black spine. And volume 7, because it's after the Convergence line, I know I've said it slightly before here, but because it's branded as if it's just after the Convergence line, it's red. That's a little bit annoying. But after all, it is a first world problem. But then I do live in the first world, so as far as I'm concerned, it's just a problem. Anyway, here we have volume 7, Savage World. It contains issues 36 to 40, and it's great. You should really pick up volume 6 and 7, because they just form one great continuous shared story, and I would highly recommend them. So next we're going to continue just past the Convergence line, and now here we really are in red spine territory. And then we have volume 8, which is called Zoom. This contains issues 41 to 47 and Annual 4, and obviously revolves around the Flash nemesis called Zoom. I won't give anything away here other than to say it's a great read, well worth getting. It wraps up some of the story threads from volume 6 and 7, so having 6, 7 and 8 totally makes sense. And the Zoom in this is nothing to do with the Zoom from the TV series, so don't come in here with any preconceptions, it'll just confuse you. Alright, so that was volume 8. If we continue up and up and up, we get to the very last Flash volume here, which is volume 9, which is called Full Stop. Now this contains issues 48 to 52. Only a couple of these issues are written by Venditti, unfortunately, and Booth has already left, so the artwork has dropped in my opinion. So this marks a notable change of tone from the last few volumes. I didn't find it interesting, and whilst you might want to read it, I personally didn't bother purchasing it for my hardcover collection. At the moment, I should point out that I've only dipped my toes into the era of DC Comics set after this, which is DC Rebirth, and so I can't say with any certainty if any of the volumes that I've said to you can skip are actually essential reading. I mean, for all I know, you do need to read them to understand Rebirth, but right now I don't know. But what can you do? Let's zoom out a little bit now. So that was the end of the Flash, and you can see that takes you to the edge of the map. So let's zoom out and see where we go next. Now there's not much left to cover, but we do have one of the big series left to cover, unfortunately, which is a Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman is the bottommost part of the hero section of this map. You'll see it here. So there we are, Flash, Aquaman, Green Arrow, so on. And here's Wonder Woman right at the bottom, just before we get to Justice League. Now, this Wonder Woman series was released from 2011 to 2016. That makes this a volume with a big V4 of the Amazon's comic series. This run is often hailed as one of the shining jewels in the New 52, and so it's been collected in a variety of formats, and I'll cover them all here. I'm going to be totally upfront. I did not enjoy it in the slightest. I'm not a fan of this critically acclaimed run, even though I went into it with high expectations. That's purely down to me. It has a very mythological and fantastical bias to the story, and I'm not a fan of fantasy and supernatural and myth and that sort of thing. So that's my own personal prejudice against this particular arc of Wonder Woman. But please feel free to check it out yourself. I know lots of people are interested in it. Before we dive into it, let's just consider things that you need to know. So when it comes to Wonder Woman, you need to know she's one of the big three, one of the Trinity along with Batman and Superman, but she's always been criminally underrepresented. Next, she's an Amazon from a paradise island called Themyscira. If you've seen the Wonder Woman movie, that gives you a good idea of what I mean. Thirdly, she has always had an origin story where she was created from clay or dust. Again, they mention that in the movie. 4. In the comics prior to the New 52, she had a romance with someone called Steve Trevor. Many of you will be familiar with that again from the film, and Steve Trevor was played by Chris Pine. However, it doesn't feature here at all. And finally, even if you do the most cursory online research for her backstory, you'll find a whole array of different pseudonyms and versions of Wonder Woman. Those are confusing and unnecessary to know, a little bit like Hawkman, so please don't do that. I'm going to zip through these quite quickly, but we'll start off with Volume 1, which is called Blood, which is this image you can see here. So this was written by Brian Azzarello and illustrated by Cliff Chiang. And this starts a lengthy run of issues on the character. The stories here are all very much rooted in Greek mythology, like I said, wasn't a big fan of. And it's very difficult to talk about any of Azzarello's run, even as individual collections or volumes. And the reason for that is that they form one long continuous story. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a quick run right through the first 6 volumes, which is Azzarello's run, and then I'll chat about it for a bit. So Volume 1, which is Blood, has this cover, collects issues 1 to 6. Volume 2, which has this cover, is called Guts and collects issues 7 to 12. Volume 3 has this cover and is called Iron, I-R-O-N, and that collects issues 13 to 18 and issue 0. Over here we have issue 4. Issue 4 is called War, and that collects issues 19 to 23. We then have the Forever Evil line. That totally doesn't affect the series in any way. That takes us to Volume 5, which is called Flesh. That's the cover there. That collects issues 24 to 29 and also issue 23.2. And then continuing along, we get to the end of Azzarello's run. This is the cover. This is what it looks like. This is called Bones, and it collects issues 30 to 35. So that takes us pretty near to the convergence line, but first things first, what we need to point out is that Azzarello's run is only for the first 35 issues, not the first 40. If you're used to DC New 52, you'll automatically think it takes you up to 40 because that's where the convergence event hits, and that's when a lot of series end or change writer and stuff like that, but that's not the case here. Secondly, this comprises the entire single reading sequence of issues. It's been wildly popular. Personally, I don't like it. It's available as these 6 volumes, which are all paperbacks. These are all also available as standard size hardcovers. It's also collected in an omnibus here, which collects issues 0 to 35. If you prefer an even bigger format, it's also collected in 2 absolute editions here. Now, as it's collected as 2 absolute editions, but it's one single continuous story, that means if you want to get the absolute editions, you will need to get them both. Anyway, what's worth remembering is that both of these premium formats only collect Azzarello's run, and they don't collect any of the issues at all from 36 onwards. So actually they omit about 14 or 15 issues of the New 52. You may or may not be interested in reading those, but if you are, we're going to continue talking about it now. So back to the map here, and there's Wonder Woman in the centre there. So we were looking at this, which was volume 6. Now let's follow the line along just before the convergence line, and again this does have a red spine on it. This is volume 7, which is called War Torn. It contains issues 36 to 40 and Annual 1, and it's written by Meredith Finch whilst illustrated by her husband David Finch. Now, this is where he went after Batman the Dark Knight got cancelled, clearly. I actually like this volume a lot. It weaves Wonder Woman much more thoroughly into the DNA of the New 52 universe, unlike the previous standalone story arc by Azzarello, and I loved the art. So it was a buy for me. Picked it up, haven't regretted it. Continuing on, we then have volume 8, which is called A Twist of Fate. It's pretty good, and it collects issues 41 to 47. Continuing along to the end of this run, just here, we have Wonder Woman Volume 9. It's called Resurrection, and it's all rightish, and it collects issues 48 to 52. So that's the last one there. Again, available in paperback or in hardcover with a red spine. Alright, let's zoom out a little bit and just have a quick review of where we are, because I know there's quite a lot of information, and I do know a lot of people are quite interested in how Wonder Woman worked. So, in summary, just to be clear, if you're interested in this run, what you need are the first 6 volumes, which are the Azzarello run there. Okay? So the 6 volumes you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ignore the 7th one just on the corner. But those ones there, here, are the Azzarello run. They're definitely worth reading. They're definitely worth making your own mind up on. I really disliked them, but hey, that's a hot take. Like I say, they're all available as hardcovers and paperbacks, and there's a variety of different versions that I've just talked you through. Hopefully that's all clear, guys. Any questions, just let me know in the comments below. So that's the whole Heroes run. Or is it? There's one final person that I just want to zoom in on up here. So not in the early part of the New 52, not in the part of the New 52 before Convergence, but after Convergence, what we have is just this guy out here in the DC YOU era all by himself. This is Cyborg, and this ran from 2015 to 2016. This represents his first ever standalone series, and like I say, it debuted after Convergence in the DC YOU era. There's nothing you need to know specifically before you jump in. All the essential backstory is given in the comic, although it doesn't hurt to have read the New 52 Justice League first. So let's have a quick zoom in. We've got volume 1 here, which is called Unplugged. It contains issues 1 to 6. And then if we continue up and follow that line there, there we are, zooming out and zooming in again. We have volume 2, which is called Enemy of the State. That contains issues 7 to 12 and is pretty terrible in my opinion, actually. Both of these are only available as paperbacks. I'm not a fan of them, and I'm not a fan of them for a variety of reasons, but one of the things, and I think this is probably going to come up again later, is I really dislike it when writers take over a character that has a particular feature or characteristic. Their character might be, for example in this case, a cyborg, or they might be missing an eye or something like that. And then one of the very first things they do is they have some event or something going on that basically removes that feature from the character, so it's easier for them to write. The only time this ever worked well is in Gail Simone's Batgirl run, and she did it really, really well when she removed the wheelchair aspect from Barbara Gordon. But in every other example I can think of, I don't like it. And here, not to give any spoilers or anything, the whole point of Cyborg being Cyborg is that he is a cyborg, not that he can turn human or look human. And so doing anything like that is really just lazy storytelling as far as I personally am concerned. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Sorry for going off in a bit of a rant there, but let's zoom out a little bit. Let's have a look and see where we are. There in that top right hand corner, guys, that's all the hero stuff. That's everything we covered in this video 6.2 and the last video 6.1. Well, that's all for today. Tomorrow's video is going to be 7.1, and that's finally going to answer the questions I've been getting about things people think that I've forgotten, as if that would ever happen. So series like Huntress, World's Finest and Batman Beyond, be patient, all will be revealed. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, please like, comment, subscribe and share more widely. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts on the New 52, so please hit me up in the comments or tweet me at I am Thomas Judge. As always, these videos are only possible thanks to supporting this channel by heading over to Amazon.com and picking up the first episode of my prose episodic novel No Gods or Kings. That's available for less than $1. It's over 200 pages of content, and it's the first in a series, of which the first 4 volumes have been printed. Series of interviews from a future where superpowers are real and the entire world has changed dramatically as a result. If you've got Kindle Unlimited, it's already free for you, but I would still really appreciate it if you could download it, read it, and maybe review it as well. If you're interested in downloading the map that I've been using for these videos, that's also available on the same website, which is nogodsorkings.com if you don't want to buy the book from Amazon. And that's going to be in the description below. So whilst you're there, why not pick up the first book or read a free excerpt and support the channel. Until next time, stay classy.